Hello and welcome to the All Humans Are Human, the Annie Altman Show podcast, season 5. Welcome to the 4th episode in the Creation C series. For the second time on the podcast, I get to be here today with Indy, Rishi, Singh. He's a fungi, and I'm going to let him elaborate on the many forms of creative fungi that he exists as. And thank you so much for coming on a second time. I'm so glad to get you for the C again.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for having me on. Well, first and foremost, you call me a fungi, and that triggers me a lot because I'm actually a really serious guy wearing a fungi costume. So
was that a setup for you to tell me to call you a fungi so you could set up that line of me being triggering? Is this podcast I didn't give you a trigger warning before calling you by your preferred fungi pronoun. What do I do?
Yeah, you gotta call me the serious guy now. Serious guy with a fungi costume.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the most important things for me to share when it comes to explaining who the heck I am is, first of all, I don't know. Like, I don't know anything. I don't know. Is that cool?
Yeah, that seems like a base of the whole question.
I don't know.
That there isn't and that maybe there isn't a known.
Yep, like I totally don't know. And the more I learn, the less I know. And the more mentors and teachers and the more that I gain, the less I know. Actually, it's more like, oh shoot, I need to learn all that stuff too. But I must say that in the process of I don't know, I continue to find myself being more and more enriched with ideas, enriched with skills, enriched with perspectives, and enriched with like also experiences. Like some of the experiences I've had in my life, like it's been pretty. I mean, I was just talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was like kind of elaborating to me. He's like, dude, how have you done all that stuff in one life? And I'm like, because I don't know. Like it was like so easy for me to be like, because I operate from a place of I don't know, it allows me to always learn and connect with people who are willing to share.
I love this.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Turn the light up. Light bulb. Just turn it and you can shake your head and do a dance. Light bulb, doorknob, doorknob. Light bulb, doorknob, doorknob.
Very Jewy, like dreidel you could add in there too. I love it.
dreidel, doorknob.
Go through a whole thing. You said so many good things in there, and you used the word process, which I love, and makes me think of regenerative practices of farming and health and all of the things that I don't know is a process. And then the kind of regeneration that comes from that, where you have so much more space to expand when you accept that mystery of I don't know. And that's funny too, how that ties with play and seriousness. And I totally relate to that. And I feel like a lot of people do too, of like a fungi and a serious guy kind of costume, or like there's two wolves inside of you. Like there's a fungi and there's like a super serious, and like wolf, and how to kind of flow between them. Because for me, the serious one, I don't know, for you, is it also the serious one that's the one that wants to know, and the playful one is like, I don't know, fuck it, let's find out?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's I joke about creating the separation, but to me, it's an illusion, right? Actually, it's an illusion of separation. They're both the same. And actually when I'm most in flow and I'm most in harmony and I'm most in happiness, when I'm the healthiest I am, right? Mentally, physically, spiritually, it's always when those two, both the seriousness and the play are flowing together. And like I'm doing serious things, I'm like addressing things I care about, I'm things that make me angry, things that make me upset, things that whatever, but I'm showing up in those places in play. So I'm not like getting affected by them. Like I'm not getting like depressed or anxious or whatever. I'm turning my anger or my fear, my anxiety into play. And the play allows me to go deeper into the things I care about.
I totally relate to that too. That distinction is making me think about the difference between intention and action. And
Right.
when you're doing something with the intention, with a serious intention, with, like you said, of something that's really important to you, and you're very mindfully giving your attention and your creative consciousness and your energy towards that. And also the action is to do it in a playful way without things, from my experience, of like perfectionism coming up or needing to have a specific result, or doing it in a way that says, I'm going to do this because it feels good to do it. Which
Yeah, I
is,
mean, my hypothesis is that's how people burn out.
what is how people burn out?
Is doing the work, like working, but not playing.
Yes, say more about this. I totally agree.
Yeah, a lot of us, we have to work to pay the bills. We have to work for responsibilities. We have to work also for purpose and meaning in life. Like if you just did nothing all day, you're gonna get depressed, right? So we have work, but if we don't have work and play in balance, we burn out. Like the hypothesis is that like when it's too overbalanced, too loaded on the work side, and you don't have to play, oh my gosh, it crashes. But also sometimes we start perverting our idea of play. Like we'll work hella hard, we'll make a bunch of money, and then we're like, oh, I'll play by drinking a lot, or I'll play by getting fucked up, or I'll play by being extra promiscuous, right? So we end up like playing, but we're not actually playing. We're playing like in a perverted way.
It's almost like in a work way too, or like maybe I'm like in my experience, again, the only one I can speak to here, of like taking play really seriously. Have you ever done that? Is like you said, of like needing to, that's what makes me think of like perverted play in some ways too, of like it's not really play.
Yeah, I mean it's weird, right? Look at one of the biggest industries in the world is gambling, right? And the idea of gambling is based on human behavior. Like we love the idea of playing the randomness. Like it's in like the randomness is so exciting. Like think about children, like little babies. Like even when we were kids, we all loved randomness. Like any game of randomness, we love it. You can make any kid just have fun. What's in my hand? Which one, right? Which hand, right? Like it's so fun. But eventually what happens is if we don't play that like consciously, it plays us. And now the gambling industry is playing us. The sex industry is playing us. The entertainment industry, the social media industry, they're playing our need to play.
Totally. And then using that to manipulate people psychologically and sales wise, and all of it, that, like you said, is going to this very basic human need. And I'm glad you brought up the whole spectrum. And I love too I think a lot about the bell curve and the pendulum swing of, you said too, we have a need for work, for purpose, for doing things that are important to us, for putting energy towards things that really matter to us. And we do have needs for games and sex and touch and laughter. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different ways that those get exploited on both sides.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and the question we should ask is, how do we make work and play regenerative?
Is that one of the questions you like to focus on?
I don't know. For me in my own life, I like to ask myself questions. I feel it gives me focus personally, like internally, my inner dialogue. Like questions help move things. But even when I notice with others, right, when we ask questions, we allow more space to allow people to answer from their perspective, rather than like, oh, you got to do this, Annie, you got to do this, blah, 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 blah. Like what? Like, huh? How do I know what you need to do?
Totally. We don't. And that again goes to the I don't know. And that's funny too that you asked that as a question. And to me, that's one of the answers, is that questions make work and play regenerative. And questions are also a cool bridging of work and play. And I guess, like you said too, I don't know, do you ever feel kind of caught in that paradox that you mentioned of like, well, it's all one, like it is all the same thing too. So both are the same. Like, how do you even feel in your body when it's which, or like when it's leaning to which side.
Maybe caught in a paradox is a paradox itself.
Whoa. Oh, what?
What if that's a paradox?
Say more. Wait, say more. Go into that first. That's amazing. Please, please say
Well,
more.
yeah. I mean, like, do we have a choice being in the paradoxes, the Zen, the cones, like the Zen cones, right? Or do we have a choice being in these, like, are we living to die or dying to live? Like, is there actually a choice?
Or are we just here?
It's just that's the paradox. It's just we're in it, you know. Um, and so us us having to decide if we are or not, maybe that's what's causing us so much anxiety. Is like the need to know, like, am I in this? Is it this? Is my this? Am I this or this? Or like the need to know. It feels like a very like it feels like handcuffs, like psychic handcuffs.
Yes. Of like analyzing, is this work or is this play, or am I working enough or am I playing enough, kind of a thing.
Or is this like messing me up, or is this like the thing that's not living up to my purpose? Is this like just like asking the question and then getting caught in the question itself, right? um and so when you say caught in the paradox, right, like really like it's either it's for me, I mean, in answering that question, it's like, can you embrace the paradox, or are you going to resist what is? Because if you embrace it, maybe for a moment you got to do some work so you can play. Maybe you got to play to do some work. Maybe you could do work and play at the same time. What if like anything is possible once you embrace the paradox?
Hmm. That's definitely a cliche I found to feel true again and again. The goofy part and the other paradox of this is that if like I can talk my way through it myself and with people to get to that feeling of acceptance, and also there aren't words for it. It's a feeling. It's a you feel that too, of like how to actually get to the embodiment of that acceptance.
I think it's really it's there's like a bunch of hacks, right, for embodiment of that acceptance, right? I love that. Like if you want to hack for the embodiment of the acceptance, go join a kirtan. Go experience a kirtan. Go experience an ecstatic moment with other people, right? Whether it's through singing together in love, or it's dancing together but synchronized dancing, where it's joyfully synchronized dancing, or it's joyful synchronized singing, or it's joyful art together. Anything we do with other people where it's like creative expression is like a hack right there. Like you, without ideology, you're connecting with everybody. Sometimes there's a little ideology in the kirtans, right? But like, you know, for the most part, like dancing, you can make it non-ideological. Like singing could just be singing do re mi ma. You know, you don't gotta sing anything that has any like connotation, right? To connect with others. Even hugging somebody, you get your heart math. Like you connect more with somebody more that way than explaining yourself for like an hour. Like, this is my problem, Annie. Can you love me now? You know, like, I mean, just hugging each other is way more. There's way more information distributed between us that way than by actually trying to communicate it through words.
Totally. Yes to all of that, which again to me is that like serious feel of like I need to like give you a PowerPoint presentation on my feelings and my perspective, and which it's funny too because those are both coming from the same place of love and connection, and I care for you to understand my perspective, and I care to understand your perspective, and I care that our perspectives are meeting in the middle, and can also be that
Yeah.
squashed, constricted, like you said, feeling of like I need to know, I need to get it right. Like there's a specific way to do this. And like you said, of music and group events, of things where you're just getting to go and be with people and share some sort of activity or experience together.
Or
And
laughter,
that's where we met, laughter yoga.
right? So laughter is another way to embody acceptance, right? Because so many times we it's very it's actually a very vulnerable thing to laugh. Like if you think about it, animals laugh in while they play as well, and so do we, right? But laughter like signals to each other, like, oh, like I see you, and you see me, but we're not dangerous.
Totally. I was thinking about this before the recording about thinking about laughter and play. And I was like, what are we going to talk about? And this theme of safety needing to be present for there to be play and laughter and some base of security for the vulnerability to come up and out to, like, at
Yeah.
the event that you led that I went to of like how to make it so the group feels comfortable to make goofy sounds or goofy movements or vulnerably express in that way, which where a lot of spaces aren't set up like that, or it is, you're like looked at as a bad weird if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me too, it's I've always been the one who's like ever since like my whole life growing up, I'm the nerd in the class that asks the really random questions that makes the teacher frustrated, right? So I've always been like left out. Even when I played sports, I had big old glasses. Like I had Harry Potter glasses before Harry Potter was a thing, and like I had thick, huge glasses, so I never got picked to play sports, even though I was good at sports. I like wouldn't get picked last because of how I looked, and I was Indian, and everybody else is not Indian, and I'm very conscious about feeling out and like an outsider or feeling out of place. So for me to create spaces where everybody can feel like they're seen and they can be a part of it, if they're willing to lean in, they can be a part of it. That's so exciting to me. Like it doesn't matter if it's old people, it's homeless people, it's children, it's teenagers, it's people at a company or an organization. We did it like with a bunch of people already in a good spirit, celebrating. But I've done it with corporations. I've done it at nonprofits. I've done it at huge organizations of scientists, right? Like scientists are the most like sometimes like rigid, right? But like for me to create that softness and the rigidity, that's exciting. Like that's the adventure that I'm a part of, Like how do we bring play into the places that are stuck? And especially government spaces, civic spaces, they're so too serious. Like you can't be humble if you're too serious, right? If you can't laugh at yourself, you could be totally wrong and you won't be able to see that you're wrong because you can't laugh at yourself.
Yes, totally.
You know?
From the serious perspective of productivity and efficiency and all of those very serious things, you're blocking that then if you're being too serious to even have the conversation. And
Of
I
what's wrong, of where the failure is, or it's okay to fail. By the way, it's totally fine. Laugh, like having more joy, having more play, having more laughter allows us also to be like, oh, I could fuck up. Oh, guess what, Annie? I could fuck up. It's okay. We can laugh about it and let's fix it. We're not gonna ignore it, but what if we laugh about it and then deal with the failure?
totally, it gives so much more space rather than it being constricting of there's only one right way to do this, and if we don't do it like that, then it's all ruined and wrong. We have to either start over and never do it again or whatever it
Well,
is.
well, this is a story of regeneration right now. I mean, I could talk about regeneration about the soil. I could talk about regeneration from many different angles. But for me in this conversation, like where we are in this conversation, regeneration is also a lot of people have leaned into decisions and choices that might have been wrong. Like whether it's the past 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we've all across the board, we've all leaned into choices and sides and identities that might have been wrong. Can we allow redemption? Can we allow there to be, and what's going to allow us to give that redemption? What's going to give us the space to redeem ourselves? To be like, oh, I messed up. I'm sorry. I was misled, or I didn't know that was true. But maybe this is also true. Maybe there can be two truths. Maybe there can be multiple truths. But if we don't have that feeling that I could be wrong, if we don't have that feeling, people are going to lean more into anything false because they're going to like double down. You know when somebody gets caught cheating? I've been there. I don't know if you've been there, but like you get caught cheating, right? And like you're like, oh shit, like you lean into the cheating. You're like, no, do you call up my friend? He'll tell you that I was over there, Like people lean into the lie. They don't go like, oh, like I lied. So how do we create regenerative spaces for us to redeem ourselves for making bad choices?
And focus on what we're doing now and what we're creating in the future rather than condemning and punishing the past.
Sure. I mean, I feel like if we're angry and we're like divisive and we're like pointing the finger, that's not playful, that's not fun, that's not laughing. You know, but the moment you laugh and play, enjoy, like you automatically change within yourself. You're like, give way more space within yourself to be like, why am I even wasting my energy being angry or pointing the finger? Like, there's so much we could do now.
Yeah,
Could
well, and
make
again, that paradox of pointing a finger, just using like at someone or yourself or a thing can be a very helpful tool to direct your attention or to take personal accountability or to hold someone accountable or any of those things. And
right.
if that's all we're doing, if we're all the way on that end of the spectrum of two people in like a finger pointing off, then no one's going anywhere, nothing's changing. And I'm guessing those
No,
people don't actually feel very good, rather than
no.
like you're saying about laughter and the ease to then talk about things more. Like, I appreciate you sharing vulnerably about cheating, and I can't relate to that personally. And also, I can see how the the leaning in more when it feels more serious or when it feels like you need to lie or put on a certain face or do a certain thing even more, and the change of these deeper questions that you're bringing up too with things of climate change, of really going in deeper layers of what's going on psychologically here and how can we address that, and without it being an address it in the, to go to the beginning, I don't know way. How can we truly examine and observe and learn from this without it being like, oh, well, we need to figure out exactly why you cheated and when and what we do, or we need to figure out exactly how climate change started and exactly what the steps are and what the laws are. How can we really look at this in a way that says, hey, this is important for everybody here to look at, to feel good, and we're not going to figure everything out in one conversation. We're not going to figure everything out ever. So it seems, what can we figure out or what can we do right now?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that troubles me a lot, Annie, in the seriousness aspect is I get very disappointed looking at comments like in like social media, like especially when it's around important issues, right? Like our ecosystem, like our food system, like our socio-political system. I mean, that we can go education system. I'd go in many different directions, okay? Our creative system, right? Our spiritual systems, right? Like you go across the board, and what happens is whenever there's these social media signals and people are doing comments, there is like way too much cynicism. Like like people are like cynical. It's not funny. Like they're not funny. They're being cynical about situations, and yeah, they're like they care about it and they're making comments about what is bothering them. But the cynicism is a very dangerous behavior, like throughout history, actually. Cynicism is actually how you end up with things like Hitler's Nazi Germany, right? Like people were cynical about the poor. They were cynical about people that they didn't agree with. And then next thing you know, boom, this is not the first time. It's happened in India, it's happened in China, it's happened in places we don't even know about because other civilizations came in and destroyed the history, right? Or maybe control the history, like the Vatican, right? Where we don't even know a lot of history. It's been kind of like suppressed. So like these are patterns. And the pattern always starts, the really bad toxic pattern starts with cynicism. Because when people get cynical, really what that is that's them like dismissing their own personal responsibility. That cynicism is like, oh, those people are the ones that are the problem. I can't do anything. So I'm going to use cynicism to reconcile with it. But cynicism doesn't actually feel good. It's kind of like laughter, but it's not laughter. Like it's not humor. But it's like it's using humor, but it's not humor, you know?
Ooh, it's like pretending that it's humor when it's actually something else.
It's something very toxic.
And you said the word patterns, which makes me think of programming. And I'm curious then how you'd relate creation for this C and cynicism. Like, do you find that cynicism is something that's created and programmed?
Oh yeah, cynicism is definitely programmed. I mean, I hate to get conspiracy theorists, but at this point, there's a lot of conspiracies that are no longer conspiracies. Um, so my friend just sent me like there was a doorway they found in Mars. Like the Mars rover just found a doorway. Like it was, I know. So, anyways, it's a whole different story about aliens, right? But or interstellar travel, right? Even by humans. But I'll throw this out there that like patterns have been studied for generations all around the world, right? And patterns are how social behavior and how social behavior works is how a lot of systems are kept up, right? Especially people in power. They stay in power by knowing how do people operate, right? And how they operate allows them to continue having power. So, if people were like, oh, we don't need to give you power, that would be a big problem for people in power, right? So these patterns of cynicism, it's actually social media has amplified it. People can create their bubbles of like caring about things, right? And then other people who don't agree with that can create their cynicism of those things that they don't agree with it. So there's all these like pockets of cynicism being created around pockets of performative activism, right? And there's a whole industry around it. Like there's money being made around performative activism, right? And there's money being made about talking shit about performative activism, being cynical about it. So that being said, when there's this much incentive for performative activism and this much incentive about talking shit about performative activism, then what happens is there's no incentive to actually do anything to make a change. There's no longer space for that.
Yes.
So
Because
even if, go ahead.
I was going to say, because all the energy is going towards that performance.
Sure, and if somebody like me shows up, Annie, or like I can only use my own personal anecdotal example, but there's other people out there too. When we show up and we're like, hey, I got an idea for you. Hey, check this out. Come try this out. People don't even want to listen. They're like, that other stuff is like way more fun and fucking ushers showing up there and doing this, and they're excited about that shit, but they're not excited about doing the actual like the transmutational stuff in the actual system, because it hasn't been glorified. It hasn't been incentivized.
That makes me think of what you shared about being the nerdy kid in class who would ask some very weird seeming question that then upset the teacher, which I totally relate to. And I'm curious because my guess that you would also relate to is that you were doing that from a place of play. You were like, yo, can we all learn about this? Like, you weren't like, oh, I want to like, you weren't getting into something that was competitive or like, wanting to stump them or like
No.
shitty. What you were truly like, hey, what about this thing? Can we all learn from this? And then the conditioning, creation, programming was like, hey, don't do that on some level. And it's kind of that same thing you're talking about now. To me, it feels like a lot of that same energy where it's like you can't even it's almost like almost oppression of just the talking about it, which does get really worrisome. Of then what do we like if we're not talking about the thing, then some overall culture of people making money on cynicism or people making money on telling other people not to ask that, or just all the things then that then just keep getting amplified, like creative energy going to that cynicism and then amplifying that even more, and then more people seeing that and being creatively conditioned the same thing. And it's like, okay, how do we come back to possibilities and knowing that there's other options and that there are people who are doing things differently?
Yeah, and it comes back to regeneration, right? Like the idea of regenerating, right? And first we start with ourselves, like our individual selves. And we seek out, like, how can I regenerate myself? Like, how can I regenerate my consciousness? How can I regenerate my attention? How can I regenerate my body, my skin, right? How can I regenerate my eyes, my tongue, my teeth, my taste? I mean, there's so many different, my feeling, my sensuality, how do I regenerate? Like, these are all things we can regenerate within ourselves. And then as we start exploring those simultaneously, we can start looking at how can we generate my backyard, my front yard, my closet, my room, my house, my community, my neighborhood, we just like those two things can be going side by side, right? But what happens when we start thinking and contemplating and acting in a regenerative way? What happens when we start connecting with others who are exploring regenerative ideas, right? Like not just people who are just trying to like just have the craziest, most wild experience, but like regenerative experiences that doesn't mean that those aren't crazy and wild too. But sometimes when you do regeneratively, it's like there's a balance there, so you don't burn out from doing the crazy wild stuff, right? So something to think about the regenerative space also collectively. Annie, there is significant research that's proving that we are designed actually to be altruistic. You know, the dog eat dog mentality? That's actually a lie. And that whole competitive mentality that we're humans are, what is it called? Like, we're king of the hill mentality, right? That's actually, that's not how we survived over thousands of millions of years. Like, humans evolved by being altruistic, literally, literally by being aggressively altruistic. Like, oh, you're hungry? Here, I got you. I have enough. Here, I got you. Oh, I don't even have enough. I still got you. Like, that's how we evolved, because it created opportunities for us to lean into community, to trust each other, to migrate together, to do all kinds, to innovate together. That's how we got here. So the fact that we're not altruistic just at the baseline, everybody's getting more ill and more sick and more chronically ill, mentally ill by not being altruistic.
I love that phrase, aggressively altruistic, so much. So much. And it is proven so many different ways that it is literally evolutionarily beneficial, that it's scientifically and spiritually, you are literally helping yourself when you help other people. Altruism is very selfish and very beneficial because it benefits you no matter what. And it's interesting bringing this up too, because part of my head's going to this paradox of, oh, well, we also have the human nature inside of us that is that selfish dog eat dog thing. And as soon as I sat with that in my head, I'm like, no, like I really do believe in the human nature of knowing biologically on this deep cellular level, spiritually, scientifically, wherever you want to take it, that my body knowing that I benefit by helping others. And then
I've witnessed kids, like, the kids are the best way to look at it, because they have the least amount of like constructs around on them, right? Like when the younger they are, the less like ideologies, the less things they've been exposed to, stories they've been exposed to, the less programming and patterns they've been exposed to, right? So you can like just observe kids, and I've been fortunate to observe kids on farms that grow up in rural areas versus the ones that grow up in cities, right? And just the differences. And the ones that are more rural, that are more connected to nature itself too, they don't, it doesn't matter if they are black and white and whatever races they are like automatically giving. They'll pick up a fruit and they'll go, a flower, and they'll go give it to another kid. Like automatically without thinking. Like they're not like, oh, should I do this? They're just doing it. And we were all like that, naturally. And then something happens where we're like, this is mine. And our parents were like, that's yours. Don't give it to those other kids or something,
Yeah, well, you brought up of how connected they are to nature, and this seems like a great time to go into how regenerative nature is by its nature. And then like you're saying of noticing that those children were displaying those same behaviors because they saw it, because they trusted, they were in the abundance of nature, they were aware that more fruit is going to fall and there's going to be more. And so
I love that.
they automatically were in that regenerative, co-creative, community-based, all of those kinds of very real buzzwords.
I love that.
Well, I think about this stuff a lot with abundance, scarcity mentality, and resource distribution, and food especially, like we talked about on our first podcast. Getting food to people, and also just that there is enough food for people, we can easily grow enough food for people, that generation is the nature of it. Like it's silly in a laugh so you don't cry kind of way for me. Of course life is regenerative, like look outside.
Very much so. In fact, that is the redemption that we all need to start talking about, sharing with each other. If anybody is listening to this, I encourage you to, if you can do anything regenerative, start talking about the story of regeneration with everybody you speak about, because it's also a story of hope, right? And without hope, we kind of like become, we something happens. We start going down these really dark pathways.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, I appreciate you taking it here and again going to like all these different levels of the human psychology and the regeneration of ourself, like you brought up, and being playful and kind with ourselves. And then also you're bringing up the word redemption that you said earlier too, and I'd love for you to share more about, cheers, I'd love for you to share about what that word means to you and for you.
Redemption. Oh my God. One of my best friends, he's a master Indian. He plays like sitar, the tabla, all this shit. But he also grew up like playing rock music. So he's like really talented at both worlds, India and Western. And he created a redemption song. You know, the Bob Marley song, he did it though with the Indian style. It's so cool.
That's so fucking cool. I want to hear it. I'll
It's
listen
really
right
good.
after you record.
Anyway, so when I say, I bring that up because redemption for me, I can't help but think about Bob Marley, right? And and in thinking about Bob Marley and feeling him out and feeling out the idea of redemption, it's such a spiritual concept, right? Because it really is the idea that no matter what you've done, right? No matter what ills you've caused in the world, no matter what kind of harm you've caused in the world, you always can be redeem yourself. No matter how evil you are, no matter how evil anybody else has ever been, they can redeem themselves. You know, I'll give you my own story. I was very fortunate years ago, and I still volunteer with them regularly. It's an organization out of the Bay Area called Guiding Rage into Power, GRIP, right? And what they do is we go into prisons and we teach and work with the prisoners not the right word, we incarcerated homies. We work with them to be able to become meditation teachers. This is Zen meditation, right? Zen meditation teachers to other incarcerated folks. So like basically we trained them to be the trainers. And then as they start doing this practice, it's also like men's group, right? They're also, it's like simultaneously a men's group, simultaneously talking about anger and rage and trauma and harm and going deep into these subconscious things using meditation, conversations, conflict resolution, all this stuff, mastering language, right? What ends up happening is, this is like personally, I noticed this. Some of these guys, there's guys who like had murdered people, right? Like they were like in prison for a long time, some of them for life. The way after they would go through the program and also start like supporting other homies, they were better human beings than I've met like in the real world that are not in prison. Like they were so much more like heart centered and like saintly and like very conscious, very self-aware, very like mindful of you and their impact and their effect on you, like what's going on, even like other stuff that wasn't even about them, they like knew, right? And also at the same time how they were supportive to the others, like how they were really guiding others to take a better route. And some of them that got into better routes actually got out of prison earlier and now are working with this organization, this nonprofit organization, right? Or getting support out of it to not go back to the path, and you know, because usually they like get out of prison, they end up going back, right? So like, but it's like using. I'm just saying that like if it was me trying to get them to stop doing that, it wouldn't work. But if it's one of their own brothers who's been through the system, who's had an evolution, they're able to be more saintly to their brothers than I can.
Wow.
So for me, like, there's many stories. There's like a Jewish story I read years ago. I wrote this. I got asked to write an article about this experience with grip, and maybe I'll share the link with you if people want to read it. But I shared a really great story about a rabbi, and people can read it themselves. But this story of a rabbi is awesome because he also uses the magic of the evil. Like he uses evil and its magic to actually save a young child. Like, something to think about. Like, do we sometimes want to separate ourselves from evil, but maybe it's also an energy, and the energy can be redeemed for us to do something greater, even more miracle. Like we could do even more incredible miracle together in redemption.
Wow.
Whoa, that's a great line.
That is
What if we created a miracle with our redemption? You know, one of the things I've been working on, Annie, these days is a bunch of short stories. I'm calling them protopian stories, short stories. And instead of like dystopian, instead of utopian, they're protopian. And so they're short stories of like what could happen if this happened, like sci-fi. It's like sci-fi, fantasy, but like, what if this happened? What would happen?
Ooh, is it like regenerative sci-fi, regenerative protopia?
Regenerative, protopian short stories.
And the coming together, you brought that up too in that beautiful line you just said about how much it is the coming together. And then that makes me think too about the part that you just shared of how these men who you met who did some of the most horrible things people will talk about as horrible things were also the ones who you felt the most seen and loved and felt their presence the most with. And again, that paradox, and again, that redemption, and again, my head's going to all sorts of things of how many literal metaphors there are with nature and with farming and compost and shitting.
Compost, shitting.
The, like you said about that evil being used for something that is so quote unquote evil and bad being something that's used for something so quote unquote good and pure. That's a great view behind you. Great shot you got set up.
Thank you. It's all about the shots.
All about
So I have a really cool shot here before I'm gonna enjoy this one while we're talking. But like, I'll give you an idea. Like, we'll heartstorm and take a shot. Okay, ready? Here we go.
Ooh.
Okay. Right? Huh. So here's the idea. What if we created do you remember, what was that one song that Queen, remember Queen? They performed, like, it was like a big event that happened all over the world. What was it? It was like an AIDS fundraiser, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you remember what it was called?
I can look up. I know what you're talking about, or I know I've watched the performance.
Okay. No worries. So here's a protopian regenerative idea, right? Short story idea is that a group of musicians decide, after maybe they do like an ayahuasca retreat or something, right? And they decide, oh, let's put together this epic redemption concert, right? And they put on this epic redemption concert. And in this redemption concert, they actually bring into the space, and anybody who they literally invite all the leaders, the presidents, the dictators of the world, the business leaders, and they invite them. Like, you guys can come, and we'll give you like this dope ass like setup, like you'll have, right? And actually, like, it's an opportunity for these musicians and everybody who gets involved and everybody who's watching to literally like say to all these people, like, we forgive you. Like, it's cool. Like, like, you guys are awesome. Like, we know you're powerful. You're dope. We forgive you. Like, it's okay. We'll give you a hug. Look, come here. We'll give you a hug. It's all good. We forgive you, but let's do something. Let's do it different. Let's do things different. Let's do it together.
Who were will you repeat who you said the people were coming, or maybe I misheard, or maybe my head was going to some other Brandon Heartstorm idea.
You're going, dude. You went in a different. You went on a different train.
I don't know. Will you please repeat who were the people at the concert in your mind?
The people at the concert it's actually being put on by like all the dopest people from around the world, like, that everybody loves. They just all rally.
And then at that concert is when there's a collective forgiveness about
everybody who's done wrong, especially the most detrimental ones, the past, whatever. The ones that we have evidence about.
Yeah. I think maybe because of thinking of the AIDS concert, my head was going to like specific cause awareness and regeneration and climate change and farming. And so I was thinking of a concert sponsored by oil companies and the corporate sort of side of things and a forgiveness of them and a switch of what can we, like, how that could change what we do differently. But I like to just like redemption of humanity, like having a play concert that is, it's funny too, because like this is like same theme comes up in all the different religions too, of different holidays based on redemption and forgiveness and the hero's journey. I was thinking about that too, like that circle and arc
Totally.
going through.
Totally. Oh yeah, that's for sure. Hero's journey definitely has it. Yeah, I certainly think there's a benefit in like focusing it on one thing, but in terms of like a protopian idea, right? It feels like if we simplify, and it's just like a just like I said, protopian, because it could be an infinite amount of like directions. But like if we just get to like the core, like the soul, right? Like what is hurting the soul that causes evil? Like what causes that kind of behavior? What causes those kind of choices to like believe in the separation of everything, right? Like it's a at a soul level. Forget about like whether it's climate related or gender related or whatever you want to. Everything there's infinite, right? Go deeper than that. Like what's the deeper layer? Like how does it get there? For me, it's separation. Like the story of separation.
Yes to all of it. Now my head was like hearing and seeing how what you were talking about could be one of your Protopia short stories. And also I so agree and feel you on the separation and the we are here to awaken from our illusion of separateness. And the more that separation for me causes a cutting off from regeneration. Because if I'm believing I'm separate, then I'm not participating in any sort of regenerative, symbiotic, playful, creative process.
Exactly. Exactly. Especially if you're afraid that you're going to lose your money because people find out. You know, like think about for 1 second. Like, I mean, I'm totally just going down a rabbit hole, so I hope you're okay with it. But it's getting me thinking because you have to think deeper whenever you're storytelling, right? Storytelling, when you do any sort of storytelling, you have to know stuff even deeper that nobody else knows about, like deeper understanding of the idea, you know? And so for me, it's like, like what would cause you to do the kind of damage you're doing in the world? Like the oil companies, all these companies, right? Like there's pharmaceutical, there's so many of them. They're so toxic, right? Education companies. And like, what would cause you to go so far that you need to hide what you do? So if that's causing you to hide what you do, like what if we're like, hey, we forgive that you're hiding what you do? It's a signal. It's like a signal. Like who's doing that? Like they're either being chased by people angrily, right? Or they're like pretending like it's not happening, but they're definitely hiring people, spending a lot of money. They know what's happening.
Yes.
I don't know.
This makes me think back to like again in a zoomed out setting of that same thing, that kind of like a same behavior that when you were sharing the story about and talking about cheating and that impulse and the response that then when you hide it and then the like snowballing of hiding it even more and more and going into the shadows and all of those things. And I'm curious, I'd love related to that and also the classic hurt people. I feel like it was what you were just dancing around or like talking on without saying those exact words of it, of
Totally.
what happened in that person's life that caused that decision. And then how is that decision going to impact someone else, and what are we generating and what do we want to regenerate?
Exactly.
How do you feel about that one, the hurt people? Or the like, have you heard the like hurting people hurt people, or when
How about the title of this protopian one is forgiven people forgive people. How's that?
I love that.
Or forgive people forgive people. How's that?
I love that. And then
That's better.
yeah.
Oh, that actually works. Like that's actually like a double, like total double speak, right there. Is forgive people, forgive people.
Like 1984 double speak, or like just like a what, like a not necessarily like a positive. That's not.
Do you want to know something really crazy, Annie? Like I'll just share with you because it popped up and it might as well. So 1984 is a dope book. Like amazing idea, incredible vision, incredible. Maybe it's also actually like it's like that dystopian, drops as well. Hunger Games drops on us, by Orson. But one of the things that one of the things that was interesting in 1984 was that was also a crazy moment happened in India with the Sikh people. Like the Sikh people, the temple, we have a golden temple there in India. It got the Indian government, right? We're like minorities in India, right? So the Indian government comes in. We're like Jews in India, if you think about it, right? And so the Indian government comes into our temple with tanks and military, and they, under the guise of saying there's terrorists there, they like locked the doors and killed like thousands of children, grandmas. Like they were not there. They were like people praying there. Everybody was going there every day to pray. And then they stole a bunch of like gold and like jewels and fucking, there's like the whole place is called the Golden Temple. I'm not even joking. It's like made of gold, and then like it's surrounded by marble, and like 100,000 people a day get fed for free. Like doesn't matter what race, religion, whatever you are. It's been happening for 300 years, right? It's like a big part of the Sikh philosophy is like be of service and do it beautifully, like do it radiantly. Like you don't gotta be like a beggar on the street helping people. You could be fucking royal and help people, right? You could be a warrior and help people. Anyways, they went in with the military. And so it's really crazy when people say 1984 because we have trauma from that. Like the people, we had to run, there was like riots afterwards and people were getting murdered and slaughtered that were like Sikh. Like a lot of Sikhs migrated out of India after that. People don't know this. It's crazy. The Indian government won't admit it. The news media all around the world, BBC, and nobody fucking covered it. Dude, this is like crazy. Like 1984. Nobody covered it. Can you imagine like coming from my background growing up in America and nobody ever knew about that? And people are like Holocaust this and this, that, this. And I'm like, what? It's like right now we have footage of it. How is this not being talked about?
How is this being gaslighted on this intense of a level, both systematically and systemically and personally?
And how could Jewish people not bring light to it? That was really what I was disappointed on. It was like, wait, here's an opportunity for you guys to highlight what happened to your people. It's the same story. We have to step up for each other. Like what the heck?
Yes, and say something about it. I really appreciate you saying about it now and sharing on this recording about it. And it's a history that I only know a teeny bit of the surface of, and know that things are hidden, and know that there's so much that is not being released and that is being denied, even though, like you're saying, there's literally super public footage of all sorts of things. And it is really disappointing and sad, and a seriously sad and a serious sad moment of when there are those opportunities to say, hey, we could come together to create a different future, to talk about this behavior that needs to change, that then people don't want to step up for other groups or don't want to talk about it, or right. Attach their name to talking about it publicly, or to right. putting it out to different people, or just watching and reading something and learning more about
right.
the history of things, rather than this, again, like you're saying, of the lying, hiding the lying. And then the more people mm-hmm. are like, hey, Indian government, let's talk about this, then the more it's like, oh no, well, we've denied that, so now we have to hold this line of lying about it, and not
rabbit hole,
which then creates more hurt to deny that and to act like that didn't happen when it happened. Then that's going to create, of course, that's going to create more separation and more distrust in government and just in general societal structures when you're telling someone something that their grandparents can tell them happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also creates a lot of escapism, right? And like addictions and like it has other effects on society that are way more subtle, but that certainly weigh just as much in our soul, right? Like our soul hurts from those things. That you could be rich, you could be wealthy, you could be from like you could have privilege or not. Your soul it doesn't matter. The subtle effects affect you. And ultimately, even those people who are making pretty bad choices right now, and even sometimes it's us that's making the bad choice, really what we're doing is we're just adding weight to our soul, you know? And so we can balance it. We can always redeem ourselves. We can always regenerate. We can always be like, oh my God, I'm causing that kind of effect on my soul. What if I tried out something different? What if I checked out, hey, do I see somebody who might be doing it the right way that I want to do it? Like, is that person doing it? Is that person doing it in a beautiful, soul-serving, soul-enriching way? Can I ask him or her or whatever? Like, can I ask it? Like, hey, how are you doing that? Can I do it? Can you humbly show me? I'm not gonna call it my own. I'm not gonna like need to like make money off of it. Can you just show me how I can serve my soul? I'm not trying to get on the stock market. I'm not trying to turn into cryptocurrency. How can like what serves my soul? How can I do that?
What's been serving your soul lately, and what are the regenerative practices that help you?
For sure, it's been like a game changer. Getting my hands actually in the soil and learning regenerative agriculture from wizards, from masters, like people who have spent a good portion of their life dedicating their life to regenerating the soil, regenerating forests, regenerating food systems, and people who have also like are artists, right? They're humans, they're humanists, they don't just study regenerative agriculture, they study other things that are not even related to agriculture, and it makes them super like, yeah, I just got to learn from them the past few months, and it's kind of also turned me on to like, wow, I was doing all this other stuff in technology and this and doing that and this, but actually, holy cow, the moment I got my hands personally in the soil, I felt myself regenerating physically, you know? And it was like the moment I started regenerating physically, I had actually more energy to do more stuff I love. Like I wasn't tired as much. You know, I mean, sleeping was so much better. And I would be done with doing farm stuff like at like 12, 1. So then I had the whole day to like go to the beach, like meditate, teach meditation, share meditation. I play music, create art. The art that I'm creating is like creating hope in politics and other things. So like even whatever I was doing was tied on a golden thread of regeneration, a regenerative golden thread. Everything was tied on it, you know. And now it's like, oh wait, this is not just something that I should be doing. How do we bring this now to the youth, you know? Like how do we, like we're doing an event next month in LA with teenagers. It's open to teenagers 12 to 18, and we're going to be giving scholarships to foster teens and any teens that want it, right? And it's the whole event is around astrology. Like they're going to be doing their astrology and using cryptocurrency with it, doing it. We're connecting crypto with it, but they're also going to be learning how to organize and strengthening themselves physically, mentally, emotionally to actually volunteer with organizations that are planting beds of nurseries, or that are planting trees, or that are doing regenerative practices around LA, as well as organizations in water related to like cleaning and supporting the water systems, organizations that are around the different elements, air, like what are the different things we need to do, like affect the air, not just the physical air, but also the metaphysical air, right? Like storytelling, like how do we, and so these teens are going to get connected to volunteer throughout the summer after this camp. So really my mindset also is really deeply in the sense of like always staying connected to the imagination and the power that kids have, right? Like, you know, ultimately, like their imagination is super powerful. We don't give it enough like credit. And so if we create some sort of ways to empower them, not just with our imagination, but for them to use their imagination, and we'll make it happen. Like like what if they're the gurus? And we've been waiting for some like old person to be a guru, but the gurus are all the kids, the teenagers, the ones who have like experiencing that things could be better. They have hope still. They're not cynical completely.
I love that, the childlike sense of wonder and play and acceptance of I don't know, while also, like you just said, they know things can be better. So saying both,
Totally.
I don't know this stuff and I know that things can be different than they are. And I love how much of your answer for what is regenerative for you creatively, that you acknowledge that paradox of the things you need outside of yourself to regenerate, not the spiritual bypass of like everything, all yourself, all of the time, that you also need communities, these events. And I'll put all the links and all the things too in the description so people can find you and learn more of these events and learn more about the past ones that have happened. And I really admire your acknowledging the need for both, that
Yeah.
having the virtual aspect and also having the very physical, tangible hands in the dirt aspect of it.
Yeah, it's super important. It's all about flow. I mean, how do we practice the Tao? So
I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. This is the ultimate move right here. Like, if you want to be like, I don't know, this is like, here, do it with me, and then like you'll notice. Actually, it's actually good for your neck. And if you like, you can even turn it into like rolling your neck easily. Right? Cool. Very good. And then you go like this. It feels very good, very good, very good, very good. Here, say it with me. Very good, very good, very good, very good.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I
It
don't.
does
Very good.
really
Very
good.
good. Very good. Very good. I don't know. I don't know. Yo, this could be a dope like EDM song.
Go create it. I'm excited to listen. I look forward to hearing that song.
You have to listen to it while you read the regenerative protopian short story.
At 432 hertz music in the background.
Okay,
And then the story.
one last story, Annie, before we end this thing. I was doing this regenerative work in Maui, and so we started something that's going to take us like 2 years to see it through. So we just started, but while I was out there, I got to visit a like an off the grid community, right? And spend some days there, and it was run by like a matriarch. It was his grandma. She was like a wizard with the plants. She was actually pretty dope because she has like a crazy history. Like she was badass here in this matrix world, and she's like now running a community out there off grid. But they had rules that all your instruments, your singing, everything has to be in 432. You can't come to this community, you can't be in the community if you're not 432, right? And they also didn't have any, you can't bring anything with waves, like EMF waves. So like all that, you have to, like even your car keys, you couldn't do that. Like nothing, no EMF waves. That was awesome. Like, oh, like one of the things for that, Annie, was like, oh, we can do this still. And there was solar power there. There was dope ass buildings. It was really nice. It was all the food was grown there. There was cows. The cows were chilling and super happy. Like, there was like, it was all community, and it was like super safe, and it was on the ocean. It was looking beautiful, and you had all the food you need.
How did seeing that and experiencing it change your perspective coming back where you are now? And just with all these different things you're creating and imagining and regenerative projects? Like knowing that and I love hearing this on Maui, and I know the place you're talking about, and I love it. And how did that impact, how did just that impact your creativity?
Um, Two things happened. Number one, it gave me so much joy to know that this exists, that, we can live free like this and respect each other, and yeah, and be protopian about how we live, right? That's possible, right? And still be like advanced. Like we're not like, I'm not talking about like it's possible and then we're like literally like grunging it up, right? Like hippies, right? No, like it can be cool, right? The other thing was that like why can't everybody have this? That's what came into me. Like the bodhisattva in me, with like, oh, you can have this, Rishi, was like my ego, right? Yeah, you can, this is totally just do this. And then the bodhisattva part of me was like, oh wait, like what if, like, shouldn't everybody have this choice? They want to have this. Like, you don't have to. You could like do your high-rise building, whatever you want to do. But like, shouldn't this be like an obvious choice? Like, oh, when you're like studying in high school, you're going to college, like this is actually on your radar. Like, oh shit, dude, I could do that for a year. I could study while there. What?
Yes, and equally accessible as the high-rise option, not taking any of the options off the table, making them all on the same level.
So that's what excites me about like after going to that place and another one too. So,
It is exciting. Thank you for bringing your excitement to the podcast and getting the heart mind jam going through all the. I love that. I'd never heard the word heartstorm before. That's gonna stick with me.
oh yeah, you better give me some cryptocurrency for saying that.
What if I don't have. That's not
just
an
make it
offer.
just make it up.
Okay. Here's cryptocurrency. Here you go.
Thank you. Every time you use my phrase, you gotta give me some made up cryptocurrency. Okay?
Here you go. I'm handing it to you right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
delicious. Oh my god, your cryptocurrency. Oh my god. I should, next time I should have some ranch ready. It'll be much better.
Needs a little extra flavoring. Little extra crypto flavor, a little sauce.
Flavor a little sauce on the cryptocurrency. Well, thank you, Annie, and thank you for letting me like share and being weird and crazy, and also like caring, and also like not knowing what I'm doing. Thank you for all of it.
You're welcome, and thank you. It's so fun to podcast with you, and I really appreciate your openness to the not knowing and being willing to talk through different things without it being right or wrong or needing to have any sort of like debatey. That we're getting to see what comes up through the play, what regenerates naturally.
Yeah, it's super fun, and also at the same time, like it's always an opportunity to make a signal, and let's see what the signal does. You will be receiving a survey after this. If you don't complete the survey, you're gonna get a negative star.
And please send this email, forward it to 10 friends.
And email it to 10 friends. Exactly. Recommend. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you so much. I'm going to link all your stuff in the description of this and on YouTube so people can find you and reach out. Ooh, good yawn, good release. Good job, Bod. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Thank you, listeners, for being you.